Hello and welcome to Skyline's first episode tonight. I'm Driti Atri. Well, let's talk about a family that cannot pay rent, a software engineer losing his job because of AI. Well, an H-1B worker returning to India without any work, an Indian family struggling to sell their dream home, an immigration lawyer accused of filing fake asylum case, and thousands of immigrants afraid of even entering a courtroom. These may sound like completely different stories, but they all point towards one reality. Ladies and gentlemen, the American dream is changing. And tonight, we connect all 7 headlines that explain why life in America is becoming more and more uncertain. Though not just for Americans, but also for thousands of Indians who are living over there. So let's start with it. Well, when people think about America, they usually imagine tall buildings, luxury homes, expensive cars, endless opportunity. But behind that image lies another America. An America where millions of families are struggling just to pay electricity bill. An America where paying monthly rent, it has become a challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, a new study has revealed something deeply worrying. Almost half of American households, they did not earn enough money in 2024 to comfortably cover their basic needs, including households, electricity, or maybe water, grocery, transportation, and other essential expenses. Even families with full-time jobs are finding it very difficult to keep up with the rising cost of living. Well, one example comes from the state of Iowa. According to the report, nearly 40% of people living over there, they struggle to afford rent and utility bills, while only around 60% of households are comfortably managing their monthly expenses. Can you think about that moment for a second? Well, this is happening in one of the world's richest countries. Inflation may have slowed as compared to the previous year, but prices remain high. Rent continues rising in many cities. Grocery bills are becoming more expensive. Healthcare costs continue rising, and insurance premiums have also climbed sharply. Now, for ordinary Americans, every month has become a financial balancing act. Should they save money or should they pay their bills? Should they buy a home or postpone their dream? Well, for many young families, these are no longer hypothetical situations or questions. They are daily realities. And when families begin struggling financially, businesses also start looking for ways to reduce the cost. That usually means one thing: layoffs. And increasingly, companies have found a new explanation for those layoffs: artificial intelligence. Because while millions are struggling to pay their bills, thousands are now asking another frightening question: will artificial intelligence take away my next job or not? Ladies and gentlemen, artificial intelligence, it is no longer just a technology. It has become a source of fear for millions of workers. Almost every single week, another company announces job cuts. Another department disappears, another employee loses the work, and increasingly one explanation keeps on appearing again and again. And that explanation is artificial intelligence. Well, according to a new employment report, American companies announced more than 97,000 job cuts during the month of May alone. Well, that makes it the highest number of layoffs for month of May since the pandemic. Well, even more surprising is another number here. Companies blame artificial intelligence for nearly 40% of those announced job cuts. Well, at first glance, the conclusion, it seems obvious here. AI is replacing humans, but experts say that the story is actually much more complicated. Well, here business consultants explain that AI that works best in jobs involving repetitive tasks and pattern recognition. However, many companies may also be using AI as one reason among several broader business decisions. Economic uncertainty, cost cutting, corporate reconstructing, changing consumer demand, and high interest rate continue affecting employment decision here. In other words, AI may be accelerating changes, but it is not the only reason behind layoffs. But still, workers remain worried here. In fact, recent survey shows that more than half of American employees, they fear artificial intelligence could negatively affect their career in near future. In the meantime, technology companies themselves are sending kind of mixed signals here. While reducing thousands of jobs, many are simultaneously investing billions of dollars into AI research and development. In fact, Oracle alone has reduced its workforce by around 21,000 employees. Google has also continued reconstructing different teams while expanding investment in AI. Ladies and gentlemen, for the workers, that creates a lot of uncertainty. Which jobs are safe? Which skills will remain valuable? And how should the employees prepare for the AI driven future? These are the questions millions are asking every single day. But yes, while Americans worry about losing jobs inside their own country, another group is facing even bigger challenge. Indians returning home after losing jobs in America. Well, for many H-1B workers returning to India, it is no longer the end of the journey. It is the beginning of another difficult struggle. For years, getting the H-1B visa, it meant success. It meant better salary, a better future, and a better life. But today, many H-1B professionals, they are discovering that returning home, it can be just as difficult as leaving. Well, thousands of Indian professionals who lost their jobs in America, they are now coming back to India. The problem is that many cannot find suitable jobs here either. That's right, according to new industry data, more than 7,000 professionals have already returned from America during the first half of this particular year. Here, recruitment experts, they believe that the number could rise significantly before the year ends because layoffs continue across major American tech companies, including Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, or maybe Google. Here, many skilled professionals, they have lost their jobs. Some managed to secure new employment in America. Others had no option but to return to India. But India is no longer the same job market they left years ago. Hiring has slowed, tech recruitment has reached multi-year lows. In fact, companies are becoming more selective. Salary expectations are much lower than what returning officials or professionals earned in America. In the meantime, many H-1B returnees, they are discovering that finding a similar position is taking much more longer than expected. Some are accepting lower salaries, some are joining startups, some are working as consultants. Others are still searching for opportunities. Here, experts believe that Global Capability Centers or GCCs could become one of the biggest opportunities for skilled and experienced workers. Cities like Bengaluru or Hyderabad continue attracting multinational companies, establishing tech centers in India. However, even these companies or opportunities come with one reality. Matching an American salary in India, that has become extremely difficult. And this particular situation, it reflects something much bigger here. The global tech industry is changing. AI, automation, economic uncertainty, they are reshaping careers across the globe. And for thousands of Indians, the journey home, it has become far more complicated than anybody ever expected. But losing a job is only one part of the story. For some Indians in America, losing a job has now created another crisis. They cannot even sell the homes they bought during better times. Well, for decades, owning a home in America was considered the biggest symbol of success. It meant stability. It meant security. It meant that years of hard work had finally paid off. Well, thousands of Indians who moved to the US on H-1B visas worked day and night, saved every single dollar they could, and invested their life savings into buying a house. But today, for many families, that dream is turning into a nightmare. One such story comes from Texas, where an Indian origin professional named Ravi, he is fighting one of the toughest battles of his life. Well, after losing his job earlier this year, Ravi decided to sell the house that he had purchased during better times. But you know what? Months have passed and he still cannot find a buyer. Well, to make matter even more heartbreaking, Ravi says that he even removed the idols of Lord Ganesha, photographs of Hindu gods and other religious symbols from his home after receiving advice that a less personal and more American looking house might attract more buyers. Now, whether that was the real reason or not, Ravi believes that he had no option left. He packed away the symbols of faith simply because he wanted to sell the house. The financial situation has become equally difficult for him. Ravi originally listed the property for nearly $1 million. Well, when no buyer came forward, he reduced the price dramatically, even below what he had originally paid for the house. Yet the house still remains unsold. Well, his struggle, it reflects a much bigger problem. Across the Dallas-Fort Worth region, many Indian professionals who bought homes during the tech boom, they are now facing layoffs. falling property values, and a slowing housing market. Well, during the post-pandemic year, many believed house prices could continue rising forever, but today, reality looks very, very different. Now, adding to Ravi's struggle is another personal battle here. He is also fighting stage 4 kidney cancer while searching for employment after losing his job. Can you imagine carrying all those burdens at the same time? Serious illness, unemployment, financial pressure, and an unsold house. The story reminds us that behind every economic statistics is a real family trying to rebuild his life. And yes, while many Indians are struggling financially, another group is now facing a completely different challenge: America's immigration crackdown. Because while some Indians are now losing their jobs and homes, others are now fighting to remain in America itself, and that's even worse. Ladies and gentlemen, America's immigration system depends on one important principle: trust. Every visa application, every green card request, and every asylum case depends on honest information, right? But according to the US authorities, that trust that was allegedly broken into dozens of immigration cases. Well, an Indian origin immigration lawyer named Vinod, he is now facing a proposed civil penalty of $250,000 after Homeland Security accused him of filing fake asylum applications on behalf of Indian clients. Well, according to investigators, the lawyer allegedly submitted 64 fraud documents across 32 separate immigration cases. In the meantime, officials claim many of the asylum stories looked almost identical, with similar claims, similar evidences, and nearly identical narratives repeated in multiple applicants. It is very important to remember that these are just allegations made by the US government and the legal process that is still continuing. However, with this particular case, it has already sent shockwaves through the Indian immigrant community. Why? Because asylum is one of the most sensitive parts of America's immigration system. It exists to protect people who genuinely fear persecution because of their religion, maybe, or political belief, race, nationality, or membership in a particularly social group. If fake claims become widespread, genuine seekers, they may also face greater suspicion. Here, officials say that this particular case marks the beginning of a broader crackdown here. Homeland Security has warned that immigration lawyers accused of knowingly submitting fake asylum claims, they may now face heavy financial penalties and maybe legal consequences too. In the meantime, immigration experts believe that this could change how asylum cases are handled in near future. In the meantime, lawyers may become more cautious. Immigration officers may demand stronger evidence, and applicants could face much stricter scrutiny than ever before. Well, for thousands of Indians with pending asylum case, this particular news, it has created fresh uncertainty. The message from the US authorities is becoming increasingly clear. The era of routine asylum filing, it may be coming to an end now. But even as immigration enforcement becomes stricter, another American court has delivered temporary relief to thousands of immigrants already living inside the country. Well, while one part of the government is tightening the immigration rule, another part is trying to protect the immigrants' legal right. Can you imagine receiving a court notice? You must appear before the judge, but you're terrified because of hearing itself. Why? Because you fear being arrested the moment you enter the court. That's right, that particular fear has become a reality for many undocumented immigrants across the US. This particular week, a federal court in California issued a very important nationwide order saying that immigration authorities cannot carry out civil arrest inside immigration court. Big relief. Well, the particular decision came after a class action lawsuit argued that many immigrants had stopped attending their hearing because they fear immediate detention and deportation. In the meantime, the judge observed that immigration courts should remain places where people they seek justice, not places where fear prevents them from even appearing before the court. Well, this ruling also places limits on how long immigrants can be kept inside ICE holding facilities, stating that they should not be held for extended period without any proper legal process. For thousands of immigrants, including Indians, waiting for asylum hearing, the order has provided temporary relief. However, legal experts, they believe the story is far from over. The Trump administration is expected to challenge the particular decision before a higher court. In fact, previous immigration rulings have often been overturned during appeals, meaning that this particular relief, it may not last forever. In the meantime, America's immigration courts, they are already dealing with millions of pending cases. Hearings are delayed for years, courtrooms remain overcrowded. Every new government policy that creates fresh uncertainty for people who are just waiting for the decisions. In the meantime, for Indian immigrants with pending cases, the whole legal system, it has become increasingly unpredictable. Well, one court ruling, it offers hope. Another appeal, it could take it away. That uncertainty has become one of the biggest challenges facing immigrants today. Well, when you connect every single story that we discussed tonight, one message becomes impossible to ignore. Well, the American dream is definitely changing. For generations, America represented one simple promise: hard work, follow the rules, and your future will be secured. But tonight's story paints a very, very different picture. Millions of Americans, they are struggling to pay their monthly bills. AI is now changing workplaces faster than many expected. Thousands of tech professionals are losing jobs. Indian H-1B workers returning home are finding India's job market equally competitive. Families are struggling to sell homes that they once believed would secure their future. Immigration lawyers are facing unprecedented investigation, and immigrants remain uncertain about their legal status despite court victories. Well, the American dream has not disappeared, but it is certainly becoming more and more complicated. Well, you were watching Skyline. I'm Driti, and I'll see you in the next episode.